Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about the top 10 best games of 2024. The last 12 months has been a bit hit and miss. I mean, we've definitely had a lot of incredibly broken and busted and downright terrible games released this year, but there's also been a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, maybe it's just me, but it does feel like pretty much every month there has been something that did kind of blow my mind. Even if it is a big AAA game or an indie experience, it does feel like I have found myself being incredibly entertained by everything that people are putting out. But for this video, we do have one rule. It's new stuff only, so no ports, no remasters, no DLCs, so no Shadow of the Erdtree, no Fantasia, no Soul Reaver Collection. This is about new stuff released in 2024. Now, next week, we're also going to be talking about the top 10 worst games, so buckle up for that, because of course we got to rant about Concord, but let's dig into the positives. These are my picks of the top 10 best games in 2024. Number 10. Black Myth Wukong. This year has definitely had some very pleasant surprises in it, but one that definitely caught me the most off guard was Wukong, because this game is both incredibly difficult and really just jaw-droppingly beautiful, whether it is the vistas or crazy multi-phase boss fights like a bear god that just throws around fire and becomes smoke, or a weird snake goddess and stuff like that. I like the fact that this game just feels so magically different. The mythology, the cutscenes, the really cool environments we get a chance to kill our way through. Black Myth Wukong can be, at times, incredibly brutal, even downright savage to try even attempt to get to that next big checkpoint, but it's also so rewarding. Even if you don't typically play a Dark Souls style game or something that does require such careful timing and dodge rolls and stuff, I still feel like this is a game that deserves your attention because it is worth the journey. Number 9. Warhammer Space Marine 2. A lot of games these days feel like they're trying to evoke some sort of feeling, whether it is hope or joy or fear or something like that. But Space Marine 2 is hilarious because it's clearly purely built on the vibe of hell yeah. We're playing as Titus, a 7-foot-tall murder machine who is dropped with his bros on planets that are completely overrun by alien terminids, which are essentially deadly bugs, or the forces of chaos, which are essentially an army of people that have been completely driven mad by the dark depths of space. And he's just basically told, you can't come back until you personally rip apart everybody. Now, this game can be played co-op or by yourself. It has tons of extra missions after you beat the main campaign, and every single part of this, you cannot help but grin from ear to ear as you do special takedowns or rip the spine out of somebody or just reload your freaking bolt gun to do one more headshot before getting taken down yourself. Space Marine 2 is glorious. It is just so gory and so funny. You gotta give it a chance. Number 8. Helldivers 2. Now, you might notice that most of the stuff on this list is very single player. I enjoy gaming, but I typically play by myself, or if I'm playing with the bros, it's very specific stuff that is multiplayer focused, right? Well, Helldivers 2, this is the only purely multiplayer game on the list. Like, you could technically play by yourself, but the fun of it is just how ridiculous this is. You're essentially death soldiers. Your job is to just go down and try and get information or extract minerals or do survey stuff. But the whole point of a Helldiver is to die. I played over 100 hours of this with my friends. I got the platinum trophy. I did every single challenge. I unlocked every single weapon. And to be honest, I was blown to bits probably 10,000 times playing this game. These are just such hilarious missions. There's something so organically funny about trying to call in an airstrike and accidentally nuking your bros, or trying to rush to the objective and watching your friends get eaten by a bunch of space bugs because you want to evac because you've got all the research materials and stuff. If you haven't played Helldivers 2, this game completely took over the internet for months and months and months. And because it's a games as a service, some of the patches I liked and some of the patches I didn't, but I kept finding myself coming back, booting up, dropping it with my friends, and just saying, okay, how is it going to be this month? Helldivers 2 is going to have another faction with it, and I think it's kind of interesting to think about the fact that this game has already been so fun, and somehow, in the future, it's going to get even more fun. I mean, hell yeah. Number 7, Crow Country. All right, now I feel like nobody else on the internet is going to put this game onto their Game of the Year list, but I feel like this deserves so much more love. But Crow Country, this is essentially a completely new PlayStation 1 game, and I just ate it up. So it's basically a completely new retro Resident Evil. It's got this cool top-down art, it's got these really neat little polygons, it's got cool monster design and stuff, but I also just like the heavy puzzle focus of it. Crow Country has us going as this special agent investigating an abandoned theme park. It's got shut down, and so you're exploring it and finding all these different monsters, this mystery, the couple survivors that are stuck here as well, and you gotta crack a very interesting set of clues. I did find myself being so incredibly invested in it. Crow Country is technically about 3 hours long, and that's if you're not even using a walkthrough. You could probably beat this game in like 90 minutes, but even though that sounds short, I found myself really engaged in a way I haven't been since I played a lot of those older Resident Evils. It feels like it just plays an interesting tone piece, and it says, do you like this or do you not? It really reminds me a lot of Signalis. So anybody who's played that, it was another really cool indie horror game. Crow Country is the kind of game where if you play it, you get it. You can't just look at it, you gotta play it to get it. So if you're looking for something spooky and retro, I highly recommend it. Number 6, Dragon's Dogma 2. Okay, so this is the most controversial one on the list. I know a lot of people enjoyed this game when it initially came out, then there was a big wave of hate, and I think a lot of people now still kind of feel very against Dragon's Dogma 2, but for some reason, this really clicked with me. Something about a big open world fantasy where you can pick different classes. You get these little assistant helper people called pawns. I mean, this game, it is just kind of beautiful in a way that I really needed this year. I mean, maybe it's just personally, but getting a chance to play as my mage and dropping down huge bolts of lightning on a cyclops, or blasting fire while fighting a dragon on the top of a tower, or watching destructible environments, seeing two big monsters hit each other and actually smashing parts of the texture and stuff around them. Dragon's Dogma 2 is the kind of game that feels like it was made for Dragon's Dogma fans. But I will say, I like the fact that this game does have a hidden ending, an extra chapter, all this extra stuff that I feel like less observant people never seem to get to. Now, I'm not going to pretend that Dragon's Dogma 2 is forgiving. It's actually possible to break your save file. There is a contagious disease that will wipe out entire cities and really bust stuff up. I think part of what I like about Dragon's Dogma 2 is that it does feel very fantasy unforgiving. It's how hard it would actually be to live in the world of Lord of the Rings and stuff. So while a lot of people definitely have turned against Dragon's Dogma 2, I find myself playing it again now, actually, on my PlayStation 5 Pro, now that the frame rate is improved. And even then, the smoothness of combat, that glory of getting a crazy kill, I really love what this game tried to do, even if it could have definitely been better. Number 5, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. There are very few times where a movie-based game is better than the movie itself. I mean, it just seems borderline impossible, right? If you're trying to make a game based on a movie, typically it's because the movie itself is so fantastic, so grandiose, so much of a fan favorite that hopefully they're kind of hoping to entice the people that like the film to try the game. But I'm going to say something rather drastic here. I like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle more than any Indiana Jones movie, and I'm completely serious about that. In this, you're playing, of course, as Indiana Jones, but you're going on this big world-spanning adventure, trying to track these different relics and stuff to track down the Great Circle. Now, what's really cool about this game is that it's not a run-and-gun shooter, and it's not purely just about whipping people and swinging over gaps. Instead, it's a semi-open world hub experience, so you get a chance to solve puzzles, to go in different directions, to help people out, to solve clues and stuff like that, getting out your camera to crack different weird photograph ancient relic puzzle pieces and stuff. I really found myself with Indiana Jones literally leaning forward towards the TV for about 30% of the time, just really kind of admiring every piece of it, every little delicious brick of this crazy plot they're building. And also the voice acting, the characters, Gina the journalist, Indiana himself is so well voice acted. Just across the board, I really found myself actually finally understanding how fun of a character Indiana Jones is. Honestly, if they do another game, if this team, these people are called Machine Games, if they do another Indiana Jones that's a follow-up to this, The Greater Circle, I'm going to be there day freaking one. And this comes out on PlayStation 5 relatively soon. I'm going to buy it again on PlayStation 5 and beat it again because honestly, this game is way, way, way better than I ever could have imagined. Number 4. Silent Hill 2 Remake. It is difficult to surpass the original when it comes to a good remake. I mean, even if you do everything perfect, if you match the original tone, if you really explore the original concepts but in a bigger or better way, or even just fix combat in a game that had bad combat, it's still difficult to actually surpass the original game. Silent Hill 2 is better than the original. And I say that because the original is still one of my favorite games of all time, but this one just does every single part of it, but better. Silent Hill 2 seems just like a third-person shooter, the kind of game where you're wandering around shooting monsters and trying not to get cut in half by Pyramid Head, but it's actually a lot more than that. This is a very wonderful and incredibly deep exploration of loss, of despair, of your own inner demons. Wandering the fog of Silent Hill is more symbolic than anything else, obviously, right? It's about being lost. It's about being in that miasma of personal pain. But I feel like that is actually conveyed in a much more expert way in Silent Hill 2. I really found myself just kind of stopping and staring at the environment, at the notes being left behind, or the clues at times, just because I've been dealing with a lot of personal loss myself this year. I lost my mom, I lost a very important uncle, and in a weird way, just getting a chance to play through games and reflect on that sadness while watching James deal with his own pain and grief and stuff, it was cathartic in a way that I never could have thought it was going to be. Silent Hill 2 is more than just a good game. It's more than just an important piece of art. It's a landmark game that is better than the original, and I'm still shocked to say that. Number 3. Astro Bot. Alright, so we can admit the fact that PlayStation did not release a lot of games this year, right? It definitely seems like they were kind of hyping up stuff like Concord and spent a huge chunk of their total budget, but despite the fact that PS5 has kind of just been a third-party machine this year, they did release one crazy ultimate insane banger, Astro Bot. Now, when you first see it, you're probably thinking, oh, that's quirky and cute, but it's not groundbreaking. It's not that cool, but it really is. Astro Bot completely feels like a perfect PS2 platformer. It's got tight levels, it's got fun time trials, and what's really the best part about it is that it has a lot of optional challenges. In Astro Bot, you're playing through cool, colorful levels, construction sites, big snowy levels and stuff like that, but within each of these stages, of which there's over 100 of them, a lot of times there's hidden little bots, little extra guys you can collect to get that 100% platinum trophy. But what's really kind of fun is that the more you play the game, you unlock special challenge levels, more puzzle focus levels, more stuff that's really going to be extra fun and extra challenging. And I love that about it. Astro Bot is kind of one of those games where at the start you're like, oh, this is cute, this is fun. But the more you play it, you're like, oh wait, this is actually genius. If you're into platformers, you probably already have this, but really, I hope we get these way more often because this has a chance to become the new Crash Bandicoot, that new serialized franchise that every single year you're excited to pop that disc in and try and figure out the next big batch of awesome levels. Number 2, Metaphor Refantazio. There's a quote I heard a long time ago that said that a philosopher's job is to ask hard questions, to make you actually think and to contemplate and to really push yourself into uncomfortable positions inside your own mind. And in a weird way, that's why I say that Metaphor, this game is a philosophically challenging game. It really does actually make you reflect on our society, on our ideas, on our own upheld beliefs. So in this game, we're playing as a special person, a guy who's the protagonist and is friends with the prince. The prince has been put into a magic coma, and so now our job is to compete in a royal tournament. Everybody is having a huge popularity contest. Everybody in the kingdom is building teams, doing adventures, exploring the land, killing the biggest monsters, and whoever becomes the most popular person gets to become the next king after the king is killed. But what's cool about it is that there's backstabbing, there's betrayal, there's interesting scenes of helping you bury friends and all sorts of stuff. I mean, Metaphor Refantazio has a crazy soundtrack, an incredibly in-depth story that makes you think about the noble class and money and just our place in society in general. Metaphor is the kind of game where if you're not completely blown away by it, you're not paying attention. This game is fantastic. It's made by the people that made Persona, and maybe I'll get in trouble for this. I think I like it more than any Persona game, and that's coming from a guy who definitely loves Persona. Honorable mention. So this is just in here so I can cheat. It's a top 10. I want to put more than 10. So we're going to just quickly rapid fire a bunch of other games that completely blew my mind. Balatro is a fun indie card game where it's essentially like a poker roguelike. It's the kind of game where you keep getting bonuses and multipliers and stuff like that. Anybody who's played Balatro, it is incredibly addictive. It is just so fun. I ended up buying it both for my phone and for my Steam Deck, and I just could not stop playing it. Stellar Blade, incredibly fun. I actually had Stellar Blade on this list until Indiana Jones came out. I loved Stellar Blade, but especially the art style of it. I just thought the cool monster design, the really decayed world, honestly, the way that freaking Eve herself looks. Stellar Blade is extra awesome. Black Ops 6, I never thought I'd put Black Ops 6 in a video, but man, did I play so much freaking multiplayer with that. Even today, they actually released a bunch of new game modes and stuff where you could play prop hunt and freaking versus multiplayer, killing each other. But let's also say Unicorn Overlord. I loved Unicorn Overlord. This game is basically a tactical RPG, but with automatic combat. You build your different units and their different placements, front row, back row, their order of casting magic or healing and stuff like that. And then you explore these big hand-drawn maps to keep getting into this automated combat. It sounds like a weird combo, but man, Unicorn Overlord is beautiful. That's by Vanillaware. They've done a bunch of stuff that's incredibly cool, like Dragon's Crown. Unicorn Overlord, loved it. Okay, I'm done cheating. Let's talk about number 1. My pick for the top game of the year, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So probably not a big surprise because I definitely love Final Fantasy, but when I first played through Rebirth, I thought it was good. In fact, I thought it was great, but this is the kind of game where the more you examine it, the more you kind of open your brain and try stuff out, the better it gets. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I ended up doing every side quest, every minigame, everything in it. The game is absolutely freaking mind-blowing, but I also appreciate the fact that it's not not just a remake. When we first started playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, FF7 is my favorite game of all time. So I thought even if it is just straight up a beat-for-beat recreation, but with better voice acting, better graphics, better combat, I would be pretty satisfied. But the Remake trilogy is actually exploring different avenues. It's adding in new lore. It's completely redoing the soundtrack. Just across the board, I love it. But Rebirth, this game is massive. I mean, this has to be the biggest $70 game I've ever bought. I mean, it is wild that there is hundreds and hundreds of hours of content, from chocobo racing to little machine battles to flying objectives to exploring the stars and photographing different stuff in the sky for side quests. And of course, even the main story itself takes like 100 hours just to do the main story, and it's beautiful. I like the fact that this is not just following in the footsteps of Final Fantasy VII. They could have been lazy about it, right? They could have just done the safe bet, but they decided to push things out. They decided to say, hey, yes, let's do that, but also we're going to go 5 steps further than that. I found myself actually in certain moments watching these characters interact, watching the voice acting, or even just sitting on the beach at one point and watching the sunset. I found myself just thinking, is this the best game ever? And now that I've had a chance to really reflect on it, to have a whole year almost, this came out in February, having like 10 months to reflect, to play, to really sit with it, this game is definitely one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. And I'm really glad I got a chance to play it when I got a chance to play it. It came out pretty much right as my mom died, and there is something so deeply, tragically perfect about this experience. But it's going to be different from everybody. But if you're a Final Fantasy fan, you definitely got to play Rebirth. And if you have a PlayStation 5, I feel like it's one of those must-have exclusives for sure. And that's why I'm giving it my pick as the best game of 2024. Did your favorite game not make the list? Got an idea for a future video? Put it in the comments down below. And if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. I honestly have been struggling with this, and I do want to say I'm glad I waited to do this till after I played Indiana Jones. I feel like so many of these major websites, their cutoff date for like Game of the Year picks, votes, and stuff is like November 22nd. I don't know. The year for me, baby, it ends in December. So if you haven't played Indiana Jones, Game Pass it. It's that good. It's also coming to PS5 later. Look, a lot of good games, right? Man, I'm happy with this year. Could have been better, but it definitely wasn't a complete dumpster fire. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.